Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, great news. There's more transfer portal happenings. There's more transfer portal doings afoot. Let's call it. Let's say it that way. And once again, we are going to just put a timestamp on this because this is probably going to get released before a show or two that we've already recorded. Like this is the timeline here is like you ever see Westworld? It's kind of like that where it's like, wait, when was earlier happening later? When is now? This is like these are the questions we're asking. Friday afternoon, Friday mid afternoon. We have exciting news for all of you.
Well, and it does answer a question that we did have, and the question and the answer here is that Malik Hartford is entering the transfer portal, Ohio State junior safety, who played in the first 3 or 4 games and then decided that he was going to sit out to preserve his red shirt, and Ohio State was kind enough to do that for him, but during that process, it wasn't sure if, okay, are you separating yourself from Caleb Downs, essentially, so that you can be Ohio State starting safety for the next 2 years, or so that you can start somewhere else for the next 2 years? And at this point, it looks like he's moving on. And so Malik Hartford, 4 games this year, 2 tackles. He played in every game last year, 8 tackles as a reserve safety. And then I think we all remember his true freshman year where he had a couple of starts. He was a key member of the defense, a backup safety that would be also a spot safety, a spot starter at times, depending on injuries to Lathan Ransom and others, and had a really good spring and lost his black stripe very early. But then a thing that happened that sidetracked him and perhaps derailed him was the transfer of Caleb Downs to Ohio State, and that was pretty much the end of the track for Malik Hartford to be a starting Ohio State football player.
Yeah, he felt he was someone who you get on the field as early as he did, and it's like, oh man, you can just like this is a stardom track. And then it just kind of it never got to step two in that process. And obviously, listen, if you can bring in Caleb Downs, 100% of football coaches in these United States of America are going to bring in Caleb Downs, no matter how good your true freshman was last season and how much you're expecting him to continue to grow. You are not Caleb Downs like that. And that's, yeah, I think that's probably, he didn't transfer then. I think everyone sort of understood it's Caleb Downs. No one's saying no to Caleb Downs. And then this year, he and Jalen McLean were kind of going back and forth throughout spring ball, and the question was sort of, okay, which one of those guys is going to be playing next to Caleb Downs, or is it both guys who are going to be playing next to Caleb Downs? And then it felt like that got resolved a little more quickly than I was expecting. I thought that might go way into fall camp, and it was just sort of Jalen McLean's job relatively early. And you watched Jalen McLean play last year, and I don't think anyone had any issues with Jalen McLean. I think he played phenomenally for Ohio State. Felt well, like that was a well-deserved starting spot for him. And then so Malik Hartford, it just kind of felt like you were sort of expecting, okay, here, this is going to be his spot. This is going to be his opportunity. And then you go through 2 seasons where it doesn't happen. And I'm sure that was a little bit difficult. And then now there's, we should have a whole conversation about the depth chart at safety, because one of the shows that we have already recorded but not yet posted due to timing is the 5 positions where Ohio State really needs to go in the portal. And we didn't list safety because it's like, well, they still have Malik Hartford back. And then, okay, now they don't have Malik Hartford back. So, we'll have to revisit that at some point. But Tony, I'm sure you are as shocked as I am that anytime you think you can get even slightly ahead, nope. Everything is changing once again.
This is why I never like to do anything ahead, and I choose to do things generally 3 days behind. That way, I'm never duped, never taken advantage of. And so you mentioned the Jalen McLean and the Malik Hartford kind of battle. And in that first game, they come out and Jalen McLean plays 67 snaps on defense and Malik Hartford plays 0. And it was like, this is done. Like, this is that's it. And I think at that point that had to be kind of a wake up call for Malik Hartford, unless he had already had it in camp as well, but to get no snaps against Texas and then snaps again in the next two games or whatever. It doesn't really matter at that point. Your situation has been told to you. We talked about how the Texas game leading up to it was a lie detector. And if you didn't play, that's a pretty good indication, unless you're a true freshman running back named Bo Jackson. But that was an indication that they were very sure about a handful of people and not so sure about everybody else. And now, but you look at it, Jalen McLean actually led all of the safeties in snaps this year. He had 25 more snaps than Caleb Downs, but Caleb Downs is gone. That leaves Fahim Delane and Leroy Roker as the two most experienced next guys. They both had 81 snaps this past year. Fahim Delane, the true freshman, Leroy Roker, the redshirt freshman. Roker more of the, I'd say, did more of the free safety stuff. Delane more of the strong safety stuff. And I don't think that's enough. Those three, I like all three of those players. We'll see. We got to see more from Leroy Roker than I think maybe we anticipated this year. I do really like Blaine Bradford, incoming safety. I think there's a ton of possibility there. But you also have Deshaun Stewart, who was a true freshman this year. He was injured all year long. Like Cody Haddad, I don't know that he ever really made it to the field. And so there's some young guys, but you're looking at this, and Keenan Nelson also off to the portal. Of course, if you're not familiar with the name, it's because he was at Ohio State for 2 years, transferred in from South Carolina, never really saw time on defense. And now Malik Hartford just felt like somebody that if he was going to be around, then okay, there's experience there, there's possibilities there. And now that he's gone, it's like, well, now you definitely have to fill this void. And not that they weren't going to look for a safety help anyway, but now it's like, well, okay, this is not enough. There are not enough people here right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Jalen McLean. Yeah, for sure. You can write him in ink, and I think you have seen a generally positive trend with Leroy Roker, where he's been on the kickoff teams a bunch for a couple of years now, and he has been sort of trending towards the field the last couple of years. And you've seen him with the twos a decent amount in practice and in sort of the late minutes of lopsided games. So it's, that's all sort of, progressing as you would sort of want to see it. And I know they're very high on Fahim Delane, and you would think that he's potentially someone who could be ready to take on a bigger role this upcoming season. But it just feels like there's not a lot of surety there outside of Jalen McLean. Malik Hartford, if you had Malik Hartford and those other two guys, I think you'd feel like, okay, you definitely are going to have two guys who are like solidly playable or better out of this group. Now you take one of those guys out of that group and all of a sudden it's like, well, you probably have a couple guys who are solidly playable, but this is one where you don't need to bring in a second year guy. You don't need to bring in a Caleb Downs who's going to be an elite 2-year guy. You probably need to bring in a veteran Band-Aid. There's a lot of ground in here between Jihad Carter and Caleb Downs, but you need something between a Jihad Carter and a Caleb Downs, where Jihad Carter came in a couple of years ago, really wasn't really able to do what they needed him to do. And he had injury stuff at various times as well. Remember Tanner McAllister, the safety from Oklahoma State? Like maybe you need a Tanner McAllister type. And if you can find someone better than that, like by all means, go get someone better than that. But I think you just need a veteran who has played, who's got a little bit of a track record, just to sort of raise the floor. I think, the ceiling for this team is still obviously there's lots of room to grow. And one of those younger guys could really take the leap and be ready to make a really big impact this season. But I think you need to bring in some kind of a proven veteran at this point, just to raise the floor of that room so that okay, this is at least going to be okay to solid, and you're not going to, because you don't know with the younger guys until you get into spring ball, out of spring ball. And at that point, if you don't have it, it's too late. The store is closed at that point. No post spring transfer portal. So I think you got to stock up now with someone else there.
And looking at the names, there are some veterans out there. There could be a starter that Ohio State could bring in. But I don't think there's anybody that out there that you go and get that you definitely know could start in front of Fahim Delane, let's say. Like, I don't know that it's to that point, which I think is also good for a guy like Fahim Delane. It's like, okay, so I'm still being allowed to compete for the job. Thank you. Yes, I will stick around. And, of course, at the recording of this show,
3:38 p.m. Eastern on Friday afternoon. Exactly. Yeah. And, we should mention Deshaun Stewart here as well, because I know they were high on him when he came in. He was banged up. We really did not see him at all his true freshman year. So, he may be fantastic and ready to take that next step. We don't have any basis to judge that on just because of the injuries from the previous season.
Yeah, and Jalen McLean started as a true sophomore and was just fine. So it is possible. So there you go. Malik Hartford off to the transfer portal. If you're watching and you want to hit the thumbs up, we'd appreciate it. If you're listening, 5-star rating and review is always appreciated as well. And, of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com talking about this and everything else. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.